Usually when you gear up for the Eurovision Song Contest, there is this implicit expectation of just pure, unadulterated sensory overload.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. You picture the wind machines kicking into high gear, the blinding sequined outfits, maybe, I don't know, a giant hamster wheel or a piano literally on fire.
Yeah, it's the hallmark of the contest. We crave the glitter, the aggressive key changes, that very specific flavor of relentless pop music joy.
Exactly. You brace yourself for 3 minutes of absolute maximalism, but then, you look at what Czechia is bringing to Vienna for the 2026 contest, and suddenly the wind machine is it's unplugged.
Yeah.
The glitter is swept away.
Yeah.
And we are staring down a musical and lyrical landscape that is incredibly heavy. It's murky.
It really is.
So today's mission is to figure out what happens when you drop a deeply existential indie ambient track into the world's biggest pop music battlefield. We've got our stack of sources, Wikipedia articles about the artist and the contest, comprehensive betting odds and news from Eurovision World, and direct fan reactions from YouTube.
A lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, a ton. We're looking at who Daniel Žižka actually is, we're analyzing the surprisingly dark themes of his song Crossroads, and we're evaluating Czechia's chances in Vienna based on, historical stakes and some very complex bookmaker odds.
Because it is a massive risk.
Mm.
I mean, it's the absolute definition of subverting expectations. And when you look at the historical stakes for the Czech broadcaster, the pressure behind this entry is just immense.
Okay. Let's unpack this. Let's start with the guy actually stepping onto that stage. Who exactly is Daniel Žižka, and, how does a 23-year-old end up bringing something this atmospheric to the contest?
Well, he's a singer-songwriter and actor from Prague. And for this contest, he's actually stylizing his last name without the diacritics, so it's just Zizka.
Right. Makes it easier for the international audience.
Exactly. And his background really informs his sound, which is this very deliberate mix of indie pop and ambient music. He co-wrote Crossroads with Viliam Béreš, and you can hear right away that they weren't trying to write a typical Eurovision anthem.
No, not at all.
They were writing an intricate piece of mood music.
Which completely explains why reading the lyrics feels less like looking at a bubbly pop track and more like reading a passage from a dystopian novel.
Yeah, it's heavy.
I mean, he's singing about following an unknown voice and how a hollow jar won't reach the ocean floor, but then he gets to this striking commentary on humanity itself. He calls us an ungrateful child in a golden cage.
Wow.
He sings about how we operate on pure love and rage. And here's where it gets really interesting, because that is so dark for Eurovision.
It is. He's grappling with the human condition on a macro level. If you look at the chorus, he explicitly sings, "For Mother Earth, man cannot change."
And then there's the line that really stuck with me. He says, "I'm amazed how well we get unwell, then trade our pain for a metal frame." I mean, think about that for a second.
It's powerful.
Have you ever caught yourself doing exactly what this song talks about? Like trading your actual anxiety or your pain for a rigid metal frame, just building up an artificial wall or a coping mechanism so you don't have to deal with the actual hurt?
Right.
It's just a profound way to describe how we adapt to our own suffering without actually healing.
It's incredibly bleak, but it's resonant. And, what proves that resonance is how the fandom has reacted to the text itself. The lyrics haven't just been released in English or localized into the standard French, Spanish, and German.
Right, the usual suspects.
Exactly. Fans have translated Crossroads into dozens of languages, Armenian, Macedonian, Catalan. Someone even translated the lyrics into Old Swedish Fornsvenska.
Wait, really? Old Swedish? That isn't just casual fandom translation. That's like an academic exercise.
It is. When people are translating a pop song into medieval dialects, it demonstrates that the text is functioning as poetry independent of the music.
Yeah.
It hits a universal nerve. People aren't just vibing to the ambient beat. They are actively dissecting the metaphor of being caught in what he calls a vicious spider web.
That feeling of being trapped in a spider web or, paralyzed at a crossroads, it isn't just lyrical, though. It perfectly mirrors the exact panic Žižka televised the Czech broadcaster has been feeling over the last few years.
Oh, absolutely.
Their history at this contest is just brutal.
Brutal is the right word. They've always struggled to find a consistent identity that resonates across Europe.
Let's look at the actual track record, because out of 13 participations, their absolute peak was 6th place in 2018 with Mikolas Joseph's Lie to Me.
Right, which is a huge moment for them.
Huge. But beyond that,
Yeah.
the low points are staggering. I mean, they entered the contest during a very difficult era for them, suffering 3 consecutive disasters right out of the gate in 2007, 2008, and 2009.
Yeah, that was a rough start.
They placed last twice in that run, and in 2009, they suffered the ultimate Eurovision nightmare, 0 points. Null points.
And we have to understand the psychological toll that takes on a national broadcaster.
Sure.
When you send an artist to an international stage, spend the money, put in the promotional effort, and the rest of the continent gives you literally 0 points, it fundamentally breaks your confidence in the project.
It has to. I mean, how do you even recover from that?
Well, it's why they completely withdrew from the contest between 2010 and 2014, citing dismal viewing figures and poor results.
Right. And they eventually came back and, they managed to qualify 5 times, which is great. But coming into 2026, the panic is back. They are desperate to break a streak of back-to-back non-qualifiers.
Yes, Aiko missed the final in 2024, and Adonks has missed it in 2025.
Which leads me to a strategic question. Between 2022 and 2024, AT used a national final where the public had a say in who went to Eurovision. Given that they are desperate to find a song the European public will vote for, why on earth did they shut their own public out this year and revert to an internal selection?
Well, because when a broadcaster faces a streak of non-qualifications, the instinct is to take back control.
Yeah.
They felt they couldn't leave it to the unpredictable whims of a televised national final, where voting can be, swayed by local popularity rather than international viability.
That makes sense.
The internal process they designed for 2026 was remarkably rigorous. They opened submissions in September 2025 and received over 260 songs.
Wow. Which is a massive pool for an internal selection.
It is.
Yeah.
And they whittled those 260 down to a short list of just 8 entries. But they didn't just have executives pick the winner in a boardroom. They brought in an international jury of music professionals. And crucially, they utilized a demoscopic jury composed of members from 3 different countries.
Okay, let's break down how that demoscopic jury actually works, because it's not just a random group of people off the street, right?
Right. A demoscopic jury is essentially a highly engineered focus group.
Okay.
They stratify the selection to ensure they have an exact proportional representation of ages, genders, and musical tastes that theoretically mirrors the wider European televoting public.
Wow, so it's very scientific.
Very. They are trying to mathematically predict what will appeal to the masses.
Yeah.
And they judge these 8 artists not by listening to polished studio tracks, but through live auditions right there at the AT studios.
But wait, I have to push back on this. Doesn't that prove focus groups are inherently flawed for something as emotional as music?
How so?
Well, if you engineer a demoscopic jury to represent the European masses, you'd expect them to pick a safe, middle-of-the-road pop anthem. How did a clinically designed focus group end up choosing an indie ambient track about existential dread?
Because of the live audition variable. What's fascinating here is that when you put a performer in a room with the jury, the algorithm breaks down.
Right.
The raw, live delivery of Crossroads clearly cut through whatever preconceived pop biases that focus group had. They chose authenticity over formula.
But did they actually make the right choice for the contest? Because when we move from that controlled studio environment in Prague to the Wiener Stadthalle in Vienna, the actual battlefield of the map starts looking very scary for Daniel.
Oh, absolutely. The transition from a studio audition to a stadium of 15,000 screaming fans is the ultimate test.
Right, so he's performing in position 5 during the first half of semifinal 2 on May 14th. We know Rui Okamura is directing the staging, but let's look at the odds. So what does this all mean? Overall, Finland is currently predicted to win the whole contest, and Denmark is the favorite to win semifinal 2.
Yep.
For Czechia, the bookmakers are giving Daniel a 4% chance of winning a semifinal, ranking him 6th. And, since the top 10 qualify, 6th place gets into the grand final. But looking at the grand final predictions, there is a massive, glaring split in the odds.
It's one of those fascinating splits we've seen this season. Look at the classic jury televote divide here. If we look at the predictions for the professional jury vote in the grand final, Czechia is ranked 5th.
Wow, 5th.
The professionals are putting him right up there behind Australia, France, Finland, and Denmark.
Because music professionals evaluate composition, vocal control, and originality. I mean, an ambient track with a complex lyrical structure is right in their wheelhouse. They respect the craft. But what about the televote?
The televote is where the bottom falls out. The bookmakers predict that when the public picks up their phones to vote, Czechia drops all the way down to 13th place, with Israel favored to win that side of the vote.
So wait, if they engineered a demoscopic jury to simulate the public, and that jury chose this song, why do the current odds show the actual public ditching him?
Well, because the bookmakers believe in the fundamental friction of the Eurovision format. Crossroads is a slow burn. It asks you to sit down, focus, and contemplate the fact that man cannot change.
Yeah, it's not exactly party music.
Exactly. Saturday night viewers historically want instant emotional gratification. They want a hook they can instantly hum, or a dance routine that blows their minds. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the odds suggest the public will respect Daniel's artistry, but they won't feel compelled to actually pay money to vote for an ambient track that kills the party vibe.
I hear that, but history is littered with bookmakers getting the televote completely wrong.
That's true.
They rely on math and trends, but this is a live, emotional event decided by human beings in a specific moment in time. And the actual fans are pushing a totally different narrative right now.
The fan reaction is a crucial counterweight to the betting odds.
If you dive into the YouTube comments under the official music video, it's not just people saying they like the beat, they are calling it a masterpiece. But one specific comment really stood out because it directly challenges the bookmaker's skepticism. A fan wrote, "He just proved that he can pull it off live perfectly. What else does he need for Europe to stop underrating him?"
That fan is zeroing in on the exact reason he chose him in the first place. The live vocal.
Exactly. I want you to think about moments when you've watched this contest, or really any live music event. How often have we seen an artist completely written off by the experts, sitting at like 15th or 20th in the odds, only to step onto that stage, deliver a breathtaking, flawless live vocal, and completely paralyze the arena?
It happens.
Yeah.
This raises an important question about whether bookmakers are underestimating the power of raw, live authenticity in an era of overproduced pop. A truly impeccable live vocal is the ultimate disruptor. It breaks the mathematical models.
Yeah.
The bookmakers are looking at the genre indie ambient pop and assuming it will get swallowed by the arena. They're likely discounting the emotional connection a flawless, intimate live performance can create.
But can a live vocal really save a song that the public fundamentally doesn't want to dance to? I mean, we've seen incredible vocalists finish 15th simply because the song was too dark for a Saturday night.
That is the gamble T is taking. In an era of heavily produced, hyperkinetic pop, maybe the ultimate counter-programming isn't more fire or a bigger dance break. Maybe it's stillness.
Stillness, I like that.
Right. If everyone else is doing sensory overload, a guy just standing there flawlessly singing his heart out about the human condition pulls focus simply by being entirely authentic.
It puts a massive amount of pressure on Rui Okamura, the stage director. I mean, how do you stage an existential crisis in an arena? Do you keep it entirely dark and minimal?
You have to, right?
Yeah, because if you use too much augmented reality or busy lighting, you instantly ruin the fragile magic of the song. You can't put a lyric like, "I'm amazed how well we get on well" in front of a flashing neon sign. It requires space to breathe.
And that fragility has to translate through the camera lenses to millions of living rooms. If Daniel can replicate the intense intimacy of his studio audition on the massive stage of the Wiener Stadthalle, that 13th place televote prediction could look very foolish by the end of the night.
It is such a fascinating tightrope walk. We are watching a broadcaster desperate for a win, shaking off years of struggle and failure, placing all their hopes on a 23-year-old singing a moody, atmospheric track about our collective refusal to change.
Yeah.
We have professional juries poised to reward his artistry, and a voting public that the bookmakers think will completely ignore him.
It's a remarkable narrative arc for a single 3-minute performance.
Wait, 3 minutes. The rules of the contest strictly dictate that no song can be over 3 minutes long. It's designed to keep the show moving, to be glitzy, to capture microscopic attention spans, and to be incredibly commercially packaged.
Precisely. It is a very strict format.
But if the format is a strict, unyielding, highly commercial 3 minutes, and Daniel is standing in the middle of it, singing about humanity as ungrateful child in a golden cage who trades true emotion for a rigid metal frame, is he talking about the contest itself?
That is a phenomenal connection.
I mean, could Crossroads actually be a profound meta-commentary on the Eurovision Song Contest? Is he using his 3 minutes on the biggest, brightest, most superficial stage in the world to sing about the emptiness of the very cage he's standing in?
If that is his intention, it transforms the entry from a dark indie pop song into a subversive piece of performance art.
Seriously?
He would be using the metal frame of the Eurovision rules to critique the exact commercial machinery he's participating in.
That is absolutely wild to think about. It makes the song infinitely more interesting than just a slow track in semifinal two. I warmly invite you to go listen to Daniel Žižka's Crossroads right now. Read those lyrics, listen to how the ambient production builds, picture him standing on that stage in Vienna, and decide for yourself.
Yeah, see what you think.
Is the bookmaker math right? Is it just too dark for Europe? Or is it a Trojan horse challenging the entire institution of the contest from the inside out? It's a lot to mull over. Until next time, keep diving deep.